All right, let's get right into it. If you're a parent of a teenager, you've probably had those moments, right? You look at your kid and you just think, who is this person? And what on earth happened to the sweet child I used to know? One day everything seems totally fine, and then the next, bam. It feels like your home has turned into some kind of a war zone. It's confusing, it is exhausting, and honestly, it leaves so many of us parents feeling completely and totally lost.
It's a question so many of us ask. This sudden storm of slammed doors, endless arguments, or maybe what's even worse, that heavy, troubling silence. You've poured your entire heart and soul into creating a good, loving home, and then adolescence just shows up like this massive stress test, and all of a sudden you start seeing these cracks appear. But here's a thought. What if the issue isn't just your teenager acting out? What if their behavior is actually a symptom, a sign pointing to the environment they're growing in?
I absolutely love this metaphor. It just makes so much sense. Think about it. Your child is like a young tree, a little sapling, just packed with potential. Well, the family, the way you all talk, the atmosphere in the house, your daily patterns, that's the soil. And if the soil is rich and nurturing, that sapling grows up strong, resilient, able to weather any storm. But if that soil is lacking key nutrients, or if it's kind of toxic, well, that sapling is going to struggle. And you're really going to see that struggle during the teenage years. So here's the bottom line. To understand the sapling, we've got to examine the soil, and that is exactly what this family checkup is all about. We're going to look at 3 really common but often totally hidden dysfunctional patterns that can mess up that family soil. And let's be super clear about one thing. This is not about blame. This is about awareness, because becoming aware of the problem is the very first step toward making things better for everyone.
Okay, so let's start with our first type. And this one is maybe one of the most common and honestly one of the trickiest to spot from the outside. It's the emotionally cold home. I mean, on the surface, this family can look absolutely perfect. The kids are well behaved, they've got everything they need, and to the neighbors, they probably look like the model family. But inside those 4 walls, there's a deep, deep chill.
The real issue here, the core problem, is a missing connection. The house is full of people, but it feels empty. There's tons of talk about schedules, about homework, about chores, but the language of feelings, joy, sadness, fear, excitement, it's just not spoken there. It's like the child's inner emotional world is completely invisible.
So, what does this actually look like day to day? Well, just think about the conversations in the house. Are they like 90% about tasks? Is your homework done? Did you clean your room? What did you get on that math test? In this dynamic, parents become these amazing task managers, but they completely forget how to be emotional connectors. They're so focused on what their child does, they miss how their child feels. And when a kid tries to express sadness or anger, those feelings get shut down, dismissed. Logic is king. Every problem gets a solution or a lecture, when all the kid really wanted was just for someone to listen.
And a phrase like this, oh man, this one hits hard. It's usually said with the best intentions, but it sends a totally devastating message. It says, your feelings are wrong, your feelings are an inconvenience, hide them. And so over time, the child learns that to be loved and accepted in their own home, they have to wear a mask that always says, I'm fine, even when they're completely falling apart inside.
The long-term result of this kind of emotional starvation is a real psychological condition. It's called emotional alexithymia. This is when a person grows up literally unable to even name what they're feeling. They feel this storm brewing inside, but the best they can do is say, I feel uncomfortable. And since they can't process these huge emotions at home, they look for outlets in really extreme ways, like disappearing into the internet for hours, throwing themselves into intense dramatic romances, or in the most tragic cases, using physical pain like self-harm just to feel something. Anything at all.
So here's a little checkup question for you, and I want you to be really honest with yourself. When was the last time you had a conversation with your teenager that wasn't about their performance or their to-do list? A conversation that was just about their inner world. How they're feeling, what they're excited about, what's worrying them. The answer to that can be, well, it can be pretty revealing. Okay, now let's shift gears. We're going to move from a home that feels cold and distant to one that can feel incredibly hot and just suffocating. And that brings us to our second pattern.
This second type is what we call the high-pressure cage. And this one is so tricky because it almost always comes from a place of deep, genuine love. It comes from a profound sense of responsibility. I mean, parents in this kind of dynamic want the absolute best for their kids. The problem isn't the love, it's how that love gets expressed.
The classic phrase you'll hear in these homes is, I'm only doing this for your own good, right? It sounds like love, but it's carrying this hidden, really heavy message, and that message is, and therefore you must listen to me and you must do exactly what I say. The parent's own anxiety about their child's future gets turned into this rigid set of expectations and an intense, overwhelming need to control the child's life. So, what does this high-pressure cage actually feel like for a teen living inside it? Well, first, it feels like love is something you have to earn. You get praise and affection when you bring home an A+, but you get disappointment or a lecture when you don't. Second, it feels like you have zero privacy. Parents might read your texts, go through your diary, all because they believe it's their right as part of caring for you. Then there's the constant criticism that's disguised as motivation, always pointing out what's not quite good enough. And finally, the big one, the constant comparison to other people's kids, which makes a child feel like they're in this never-ending race they can never, ever truly win.
Sooner or later, when a teen's self-awareness kicks in, they are going to push back against this cage. It's inevitable. Some will do it with what we call hard resistance, the loud, obvious stuff, arguing, slamming doors. But what's often way more destructive is the soft resistance. This is the teen who suddenly becomes a master procrastinator, who seems lazy and apathetic. They develop this learned helplessness, always saying, "I can't do it." But what they're really saying is, since I can't win your game by your rules, I'm just going to stop playing altogether. It is a silent, passive protest that can do real damage to their future.
Okay, this is a tough one, but it's a really important question to ask yourself. Just take a second. Do you feel like your own self-worth, your value as a parent, is deeply, deeply tied to your child's achievements? Does their success feel like your success, and does their failure feel like your failure? An honest answer here can tell you if you might be building one of these high-pressure cages without even realizing it. So from the extreme of way too much control, we're now going to pivot to the complete opposite, which, as we're about to see, can be every bit as damaging.
All right, let's dive into our third pattern, the family that's like a river without any banks. On the surface, this might even look like the cool family. You know the one? The parents are more like friends, there's a ton of freedom, not a lot of conflict. But this kind of love, a love that has no rules or boundaries, can leave a child feeling completely lost and totally unprepared for the real world.
At its heart, this pattern usually happens when parents, maybe because they feel guilty for working too much, or maybe just because they hate conflict, give up their role as guides. They basically replace the hard work of setting boundaries and teaching life lessons with the much easier path of just giving your kids stuff. They give things instead of giving guidance.
And you can really see how this spirals downward. It starts with inconsistent rules. A rule gets made, the kid pushes back, and the parent caves. The child learns really fast. Rules don't actually mean anything. Then, to avoid the discomfort of a tantrum, parents just give them whatever they want. The new phone, the expensive sneakers, anything to keep the peace. And eventually, the whole parent-child relationship gets flipped upside down. The parents aren't leaders anymore. They're friends at best. And at worst, they're basically servants, just catering to every whim of their child.
And this, right here, is the critical point to understand. A child raised in this kind of chaos doesn't feel free, they feel terrified. They feel confused. See, the banks are what give a river direction and power. In the same way, rules and boundaries give a child a sense of safety. They teach them how the world actually works. Without them, you don't get freedom, you get a destructive flood. You get a child who grows up to be self-centered, with incredibly low resilience, and who is utterly incapable of handling the structure and rules of school, of work, and of life itself.
So let's do our last little check-in here. Think about the last time your child asked for something you knew wasn't the right thing for them. Did you say no? And did you hold that line? Or did you give in because you were afraid of their anger, their tears, their disappointment? That fear is often the real root of this whole chaotic pattern. Listening to all of this, descriptions of cold homes, pressure cages, chaotic rivers, I get it. It can be really difficult. It might even feel a bit heavy, especially if you recognize pieces of your own family in these pictures we've painted.
But here is a huge reality check, and it's so important. No family is perfect. Not one. Almost every single family out there is a mix, a hybrid of these patterns. You might have a high-pressure dad who's all about achievement, and a super indulgent mom who tries to make up for it by giving in to every demand. Or maybe a home is generally pretty emotionally distant, but it becomes intensely high pressure around report card time. Seeing these traits in your family is normal. It's human.
So let me say this one more time because it's the most important point of all. The goal of this entire checkup is not to make you feel guilty. It's not about blaming yourself or your partner for things that happened in the past. It is 100% about gaining the awareness you need to change the future. Just seeing the problem clearly is the first and honestly the most powerful step toward healing the soil of your family.
So, to quickly wrap up what we've covered today, the emotionally cold home starves the child of real connection.
The high-pressure home suffocates their true emerging self, and the home filled with chaos and indulgence creates just deep, profound confusion. And what's really fascinating is that underneath all three of these very different patterns, there's often the exact same root cause: parental fear. Fear of messy emotions leads to coldness. Fear of your child's failure leads to pressure. And the fear of your child's rejection, that leads to indulgence. Recognizing that fear is the real driver can be the key that unlocks everything.
Look, we are dedicated to breaking down complex topics just like this one to give you clarity and support. So if you found this family checkup valuable, if it gave you something to think about, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. We have so many more explainers planned to help you navigate the really tough challenges of parenting and family life.
And as we finish up, I just want to leave you with this one final thought. After going through this whole checkup with us, what's the one thing you've become aware of today about your own family soil? What new idea or insight has popped into your head? Just taking a moment to name that one thing for yourself can be an incredibly powerful first step.
And finally, parenting can feel so isolating sometimes, but it really doesn't have to be. Go ahead and share your reflections, your stories, your own insights down in the comment section below. Your experience could be the exact thing that another parent out there really needs to hear today. Let's build a community of support right here and learn from each other. Thank you so much for your time.